What's the nicest thing a complete stranger has ever done for you? Last Christmas I couldn't afford any gifts for my son. I'm a single mom and coming out of a domestic violence situation. I was struggling so much. I still am, but things are slowly improving. Reddit has bought my son Christmas gifts. Just people I talk to on here, but have no physical connection with. My son had an absolutely amazing Christmas. He's 4 and it meant so much for him to have gifts to open. I still cry when I think about how generous these strangers were. I hope one day I can pay it forward. I was moving out of an apartment, trying to pack heavy things into my car. A stranger witnessed this, offered to help, and spent a solid hour helping me carry furniture, densely packed clothes, and a TV down some stairs into my car. He was either an absolute gentleman or a criminal who was casing my apartment building for entry points. At Easter, I was $10 short in the grocery line. We really needed food, so I was about to put back the 2 Easter bunnies, chocolate and the jelly beans, when the lady behind me said, "Don't you dare," and paid for them. I cried and thanked her repeatedly. I tried to jaywalk carelessly, didn't see the fast approaching vehicle, and the dude behind me yanked me hard by my shirt collar and saved my life. This might not be the nicest, but it was nice. On a Monday I came home from work to find a letter in the mail. It was addressed by hand and the return address wasn't familiar. I thought this can't be good. I opened it to find my driver's license and a note. I was unaware that I'd lost my driver's license. Apparently on the prior Saturday I'd managed to drop it from my wallet. Somehow this nice person found it on the sidewalk, went home and wrote her note and addressed it to me and put a stamp on it, then mailed it before the Saturday pickup. On Monday it was back in my hands before, as I said earlier, I was even aware that it was missing. My ex and I were on the side of the road, trying to figure out how to change a tire for the first time and looking clueless. Some guy stopped and taught us how to change it, and then asked if we wanted a coupon for a free frozen pizza he had since we had a bad day. It was mildly surreal. I was on a 3 or 4 hour long train with my ex when we were both about 17 and she forgot her rail card. Because of this the ticket she had wasn't acceptable and we were forced to buy a new ticket for some ridiculous price like £70. While that might not sound like the most ridiculous sum of money, we were 2 broke teenagers who needed to get home and didn't have anything on us. So we started freaking out and trying to plan how we were gonna get home. She was in tears. I was frantically trying to get in touch with my parents before we got kicked off at the next stop. Some amazing dude in the seat across from us just leant over and handed me £80 with a smile. I took his PayPal details and paid him back as soon as I got paid, but such a random act of kindness really affected me and restored my faith in humanity. Wherever he is now, I hope he's doing well. Guy in a 3-piece suit got out of his car in the snow and walked through a snowbank on the side of the road to help me push my car out. This was at my big state university long ago. I walked out of class into a summer shower. Someone walking by offered to share their umbrella. We parted at a corner and I thanked him. Then another person going my way offered their umbrella. This happened twice more. I made it mostly dry to another class thanks to the kindness of 4 strangers. I was 17 years old, in high school, and it was late December, but just before Christmas, I'd had a terrible fight with my boyfriend, abusive arsehole that he was, and I'd walked out of his house and started the very long walk home in the cold. I was about 1/3 of the way home, still crying and stumbling over my own feet on the snowy road and shivering my ass off, when a taxi pulled up beside me. This old man who looked an awful lot like Santa, the beard, the rosy cheeks, the kindly eyes, the works, leaned across the passenger seat and asked if I was okay. He took one look at my face and said, "You're not okay. Come on, get in and I'll drive you home." I told him I had no money on me and couldn't pay him, and he said he didn't care. I mentioned the fight with the boyfriend and he was so nice about it, but also a bit stern and said, "Any boyfriend who won't see you home safe, even when he's angry, doesn't really love you. I've got a daughter your age and I'd be very angry if she were left to walk home alone like that." He stopped outside of my house, gave me a hug, wished me a Merry Christmas and then waited until I was inside before he drove away. Still can't think of his kindness without tearing up. I've told this story before, but people seem to like it. When I was a kid we didn't have a lot of money, so we often shopped at thrift stores. What I loved about that was that you could get 10 books for $1, so I would plant myself in front of the book section and make piles of which one I wanted to get and then decided after I'd gone through them all. One day an older lady saw me sitting with my piles and asked if I liked to read. I told her I did and showed her a few of the books I found that I liked. She smiled and then pulled $1 out of her purse, handed it to me and said, "Promise me that you'll keep reading." I was so happy and immediately stood up and said that I would. She smiled and walked away and I went back to my piles able to pick out an extra 10 books to take home. It was just a small act of kindness for her, but for me having a random stranger encourage my love of reading and making me promise to never stop definitely had a lot to do with my continued love of reading. This was probably about 20 years or so ago, but I still think of her whenever I buy a new book. Just today, I was getting breakfast at Dunkin' Donuts on my way to work and managed to leave my phone at the counter. Smart. 10 minutes later a woman tapped me on the shoulder right as I was about to go into my office building and said, "Is this yours?" She chased me down that far, for that long, just to return my phone. About 4 years ago, my family and I were on a road trip to Florida. At the Mississippi-Alabama state line, we got out to take pictures at the sign, like families and tourists tend to do. Spent about 5 minutes there, exchanged some pleasantries with a father-son duo doing the same thing, then went on our way. 15 minutes later on the highway, we're just casually chatting in the car, when we hear a honk coming from behind us. I look over, and it's a massive, white truck. It's the father and son, and the son is waving my phone. Apparently, I had dropped it at the sign. We both quickly pull over, and I get my phone back. What amazes me is that they caught up to us at all. We were going 70-80 and had a good head start on them. That means they were on a mission to get my phone back to me and gunning it. The best part about it all? It was Christmas Day, so I'll always consider their kind actions as one of my favorite Christmas presents. When I was 14, one of my marching band mates committed suicide. I, along with the rest of the band, was devastated. I was walking across the school courtyard, silently crying in the way that you only do when in shock, and I made eye contact with this girl walking in the opposite direction. Without missing a beat, she said, "Girl, you look like you need a hug. Come here," and just held me for a few seconds while I sobbed into her shoulder. I had never seen this person in my life, and I never found out who she was, but I have never forgotten that gesture. About 3-4 winters ago I had a 5 AM shift on Thanksgiving. It was freezing cold outside, perhaps 10-15 degrees. I live in Philly and had to catch public transportation to get to my job. So there I was on board Saint for a good 10-20 minutes freezing my ass off until a taxi driver waves me down and asked if I need a ride, but me being super broke at the time couldn't afford it, so I wave him off. Couple of minutes pass by and he drives by me again, waves me down once more. I tell him I could only afford to take public transportation, but he insists on driving me, telling me not to worry about the money. I hopped in the car and was the most gracious person in the world. Not all taxi drivers are assholes. I'm living in Seoul. When I first got here I met my now girlfriend and she lived about 40 minutes away from my old apartment. Here's the nicest thing a complete stranger did for me. It was late at night and I decided to surprise a girl I was talking to by heading to her apartment, my now girlfriend. It was around 10:30, and unbeknownst to me, the subway stopped running at 11 o'clock. Unfortunately, I was halfway there and I decided to message her, and she told me to take a specific bus to get to her city. I get on the bus, and I don't have the slightest idea on what stop I should be getting off on. Well, about 10 minutes later, a load of people get off on this one stop. An older Korean businessman sees me and motions to me that there's an available seat next to him. He starts talking to me in English and he says that the stop where I'm getting off is one stop before he gets off and that he'll let me know when. We start conversation about where he works, how he learned English, what I'm doing in Korea. By the time we knew it, his stop came up. He profusely apologized to me and said that it was the stop before. I said, "It's okay, I'll just walk the opposite direction." As we get off the bus, we're both walking in the same direction. As we come up to an intersection, he flags down a taxi, tells him the subway station to drop me off on, and he paid the fare. All this while still apologizing to me. This is the nicest thing any stranger has ever done for me. I love this country.